As a business owner, do you experience guilt? That feeling where you're like, oh, but I could be doing more. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And for my listeners who are a parent, I am not a parent, but for those who are, do you have that mom guilt? Most of our listeners are women, so mom guilt. But if there are any dads out there, are you feeling that dad guilt, the parent guilt, where it's like, I need to be doing all this for my kid, but then I'm also need to do all this for my business. And you're trying to balance and juggle it all. If that is you, then that's exactly what we're talking about today. And you know what? I feel so much relief to help in the guilt because I do feel that as a small business owner. And I can't even imagine if I did have kids because I know that would be amplified because there's a whole nother priority that I need to be focusing on, a very important one. But today's episode, in our special segment of Retail Therapy, we're talking to one of the co-owners of Cloud Nine Pajamas, Robyn, and she is opening up about what it's like to work with your sisters and be a mom and just want to do it all. And I have a feeling she's not the only one who feels this way, who listens to Rooted in Retail. I bet some of us can absolutely relate to this. The tips, the tools, and the advice that were given in this session can help us all, whether we are parents or not, if we're small business owners or not. There comes a time where we are just multitasking and our focus is so off, and man, that can be exhausting. And so I'm really grateful for Rhonda, who gave us these tools today for my retail therapist. And I just really hope that you get a lot of value out of this conversation. I know I did, and that you use these tools. That's where we really see the change and can implement that structure and just really help better our lives as personally and professionally. So let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Crystal Vilkaitis, the Wolf of Main Street, and this is Rooted in Retail. Welcome to our special segment, Retail Therapy, where we give therapy to retailers. And I'm so excited for our guest today, Robyn with Cloud Nine Pajamas. Robyn and I have known each other for many years. I feel like we've grown up together in business. Like we met over a decade ago, both in our 20s. This is before you had kids. And we both have certainly evolved. And it's just been really fun to see you guys grow. So before we dive in, I just want to share that anything that is said today here, we're not actual therapists. We are just here to consult and talk about challenges and provide help for you, the listener. If you need additional help, of course, seek that in your own network and whatever you need. But we're just here to have great conversations and share them for you. So, Robyn, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you and your store.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Robyn. I am one of the proud owners of Cloud Nine Pajamas. We are a family-run, sister-run company in Canada. We've got several brick-and-mortar boutiques, but we've also got a booming online business as well. And yeah, I'm a mom, so that makes things extra exciting and a little bit wild at times. But yeah, just learning to balance the life, like that, balancing the family life and trying to run a successful business.
Yeah, awesome. Which we'll get more into that, I think, today. And before we do, Rhonda, for those of you who haven't heard any past episodes, be sure to tune in. But otherwise, Rhonda Renee, please introduce yourself.
Hey, it's so great to be here again. I'm Rhonda Renee of DivineNavigation.com. And what we really do is help people come more fully into alignment with what their soul wants for them and for their life so that they have a greater sense of satisfaction in their business and in their life. And we are complete humans. So integrating all parts of you so that as you're running your business, you're not sacrificing yourself along the way.
Awesome. Love it. All right, ladies, I get to be a fly on the wall in this conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to you. And Robyn, will you just share a challenge or something that you need help on today's episode?
I feel like a really big one for me is just like, as I think a female in business, not only, but like just being a female and a mom in business, I feel like a lot of the time, like it's the guilt. I feel a lot of guilt. Like when you're at work, you got the mom guilt that you should be at home. When I'm at home, I get that guilt of being like, I should be at the like shops or at the warehouse working and trying to grow the business. So I think just the pressure we put on ourselves is a lot.
So I'm going to start out right away, Robyn, and ask you to say that last sentence again, but say I instead of we.
Yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself.
Mhm.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's so astounding how, in essence, we create so much of our own suffering in every aspect, right? There's all these expectations, both externally and internally, right? Like, what is it that you think the good mom would be doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't even have an answer. I feel like we do so much as women that I feel like it's just, yeah, the expectation is just so huge that I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I think, yeah, happy, healthy kids is the most important, obviously, but
But it's just interesting to realize, like, these are all unconscious things that are running, because when you can't even articulate
yeah,
what
I'm
it
like, I can't tell you.
is it even yours? Right? It's just something you've taken on societally. And there's an interesting thing that tool that I use to determine, is this really what I'm thinking? Or is this a voice I've taken on? So
Mhm.
notice so make a statement about yourself and motherhood. It's some judgment that you're making about yourself and trying to or not trying, you're running a business and being a mom. Just random statement, doesn't matter what it is.
Just not failing it either, just trying to succeed in general at being a good mom and keeping our business afloat.
Something to pay attention to, right, is what we think is our self talk. But there's a really fascinating phenomenon that happens where, if we're supposedly talking to ourselves, are we saying, I'm failing? Or are we saying, you're failing?
Yeah. And it's probably I'm most of the time.
Okay. So I don't think we can know actually right here today. That's an assignment I'm going to give you,
Oh,
because I think right here, I already started in the languaging, encouraging you to shift it. But when all those words come out of your mouth that aren't I centered, it's probably less likely that your self talk is I centered. It's probably more you centered. So here's the kind of secret. If we're saying, oh, I screwed that up, then that is us thinking about with us, right? Like, that is truly a self judgment. But if our self talk is you really messed that up, it's not your voice, because you
yeah.
wouldn't talk to yourself in the third person like that.
Hmm.
So whose voice is it?
The world's opinion of me.
Yes, sometimes it's an individual, and sometimes it's this collective societal expectations that we've taken on. So just a fun little thing to play with to see what's the real source of it, because it's fascinating how frequently, I mean, like, the vast majority of people, it's someone else's voice, be it a specific individual or more like a societal collective. And we're using all those things, even if someone's not saying it to us anymore, we've taken it over. We've taken it over. And now we're judging ourselves and beating ourselves up when no one else is doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, what expectations are you holding yourself to that would serve you to let go of?
Like, I think just in general, even just the pressure I put on myself, like realizing like I'm human and I'm not, I feel like some days we are super women, but like that I need to like lower my expectations just in general of what I can get done in a day. Because I feel like, again, I hit the ground running in the morning and get the kids off to school and race off to work and then race home from work, setting alarm, grab the kids, like, and then it's just go, 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 go. And so I feel like just not having enough time in the day to get everything done. And then again, then it's like, oh, well, I not failed today, but like I didn't get this and this done, or like that
Mhm.
pressure comes in and it creeps in almost every day, I feel like.
Yeah. And this is one of the biggest, and I feel like I can't remember who it was, but I feel like we touched on this in another episode, the never ending to do list of any type of business owner.
What?
And so I'm hesitant to suggest that you lower your expectations, because I'm not sure if you felt your energy when you said lower my expectations. It literally has this, like, I blew it, I'm defeated in it. So more of a right size, be more reasonable in what I expect that I can get done or what I expect of myself. How can you bring in the compassion along with a reasonable capacity of what really makes sense for you to be able to get done in a day?
Yeah, totally. I agree. That makes a lot of sense because I feel like I'm not very compassionate. I can be very compassionate to other people, but when it comes to me, I'm just like, well, didn't get that done. Or like somebody said to me once, and I found it really interesting because I was like, this is a good point, and not that I'm necessarily thinking about it all the time, but somebody said once, like, if you had like a nanny or somebody watching your kids in a day, like, would you expect them to do everything that you are expecting of yourself? And so I was like, that kind of has always stuck in my head a little bit, thinking like, okay, well, I am setting unrealistic expectations potentially of what I'm able to do in a day.
Yeah. And let's extrapolate that nanny and also an employee,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
What would, in both of those realms, because we're really dealing with both of those realms on
Yeah.
your behalf.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was a mom. I was a single mom running my business, and my kids are adults now. But so I empathize and I understand. Even as an employee, I worked at home, and people would say, "Oh, you're so lucky to get to work at home." And I was like, look, to be clear, you're either doing one or you're doing the other. And if you're trying to do them at the same time, you're not doing at least one of them well.
100%. Yeah.
So the purpose of me sharing that story is also, I was just having this conversation yesterday with my Business in Your Soul members. Like, when you're working, work, and when you're momming, mom, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm
how,
terrible for that. I'm so bad now that you say that. Like, I am like the multitasker of all multitasking ever, which is, yeah, that's so true.
and there's scientific research that says even those of us that think we're good at multitasking, we're actually terrible at it, because the brain can't switch that quickly and you can't be fully present to so many things at one time. So
Yeah.
some of this is an orientation, like self-management piece. And then there's also some specific structures you can potentially put in place that support, okay, it's mom time, it's business owner time.
Yeah.
Does anything come up for you right away? Do you think about anything specific?
I just think like even just setting like my evenings or like my not, when I drop them off at like I'm on the clock for say from 9 till 3 or whenever I go pick them up. And then after that, I need to either if I decide to put in an hour or something after that when they're home, get them doing something. But then after that, like whenever that timer goes, to just turn it off and deal with it tomorrow.
Yes. How easy or challenging does that feel like that might be?
I feel like this year I'm like on this path of like trying to lower my cortisol and stress levels because I've been in business since I was 18 years old. So I feel like I have potentially been in that like fight or flight, like survive mode since like pretty much my whole adult life, which is I'm realizing not great. And again, it affects so many things and sleep and all the things. So I feel like it's such a vicious cycle. So I'm trying to work on the lowering of the stress this year. So I've actively been not working as much at night. I still do it sometimes, but I find like that feels more doable than it ever has in previous years and
Right.
months and that because I feel like I'm just being more mindful of that, but I'm still 100% multitasking.
Okay. So if you're already implemented not working at night, what's the percentage now? Like, what was it and what is it now? What would you like it to be?
What do I follow like in the evenings? What do I follow? Like, do I follow through?
Right. How many nights do you end up working
Yeah,
compared to how many nights you used to work and how many nights you'd like to not work?
probably like one or two night, probably 2 nights a week if I'm maybe
Okay.
it's like maybe more, but I feel like 2 nights a week I probably don't abide by those rules very well. But
Well, then that actually sounds like you're doing really great.
like
So, what I notice in that, or well, actually, let me ask you, what do you notice in that? If you're actually doing quite well with that, What's the hitch?
My brain, because it will still go even if I'm like not actively like working or doing something. It's that shutting off of the business brain.
So you're present physically with your family, but you're not fully present
100%.
with your family.
Yes.
Okay. So that's also been a theme. So you're not alone. It is a chronic issue, for lack of a better word, with society in general, but business owners in particular, because we've got so many things that pull on us. So I can certainly provide a couple of exercises that you can work with to get more present. And I'm wondering if there's some sort of kind of transition ritual that would support you that says, okay, the office is closed. I had a girlfriend who their office was at home and her husband literally got her a sign that hung outside her door and she had to flip it. And it said closed or open.
Right.
And so it doesn't have to be that specific and tangible like material, but it worked really well because there's a signal. We are such creatures of habit and ritual, something that's going to help you understand, oh, it's time to downshift, and that it doesn't have to be a glass of wine or some other substance to make that happen, which is why a lot of people end up in those patterns and habits is because of what you're describing, right? And they're like, well, this works, but what other ramifications are there? So let me ask you first, is there anything then that comes up for you around, oh, well, if I did this, it would be supportive as a signal to make the switch?
Well, what comes to mind is getting in my pajamas, but that sometimes that happens because we own pajama stores. It happens earlier than most people probably. So I'm like, but I feel like that could be a potential transition when I'm getting home. If I'm not working from home, which my life is all over the place. So some days I'm here, some days I'm all over the place. But I feel like that would be one option that when I get to jammies, because I do it earlier than most people probably do. So like that would be at like a 4 or 5 o'clock potentially thing.
As long as you're not going to work in your pajamas.
Yeah.
See, here's why that wouldn't work is that you can no longer work in your pajamas if your pajamas signal that you're off.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I don't know if I can commit to that.
Right. So just know, like, you don't have to have the answer today necessarily, but whether it's a cup of tea or it's a dance party, right? Like a 10-minute dance off, if that's your jam, something that just you won't immediately have it, but if you keep doing it and then don't work after it, then eventually your brain goes, oh, we're off.
Yeah.
We're actually off.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And it's probably harder. It's easier said than done, I'm assuming. Well, I know it is. I know the answer.
Yes, it takes, they say, between 21 and 28 days to instill a new habit or neural pathway. And so it will take some effort initially. Like that's why I referred to it earlier as self-management. Most people think I need more time management skills, and mostly we need self-management skills, which include energy management, right?
Yeah.
And so some of that's a boundaries thing. An employee has the beautiful luxury, as far as us business owners are concerned, to leave work at work.
The close sign goes up, right? So.
Right. Right. And they've even put laws in place in other countries. I think it was Australia. Was it Australia?
Yeah.
Where you do not have to return your boss's emails after work hours. Like they're putting things in place because they're understanding the detriment it's having on us, this always on experience. And you are the boss, so you have the chance to put some of those things in place. And it might include making some agreements with you said sister run. I don't know if it's just 2 of you or if it's multiple of you.
Yeah,
but
there's 3 of us.
Okay, so with your sisters, right? Because it's going to support them as well. And the other thing that's just coming to me for no particular reason, and I really learned this when my dad got a terminal diagnosis and I was caring for him while running my business. And of course, I had to pull back on some things. And then this has been a decade ago now, but it's served me since then because it's so easy to be in reaction to everything that's happening in a business. That is a default for a lot of family-run businesses, right? Somebody's like, oh no, and everybody else is, oh no, right? And then we're pinging off of each other, right? So this is just a little mantra that I kind of work with myself when I'm getting wound up and I don't need to be. I know life and death, and this is not it.
Yeah,
Mm.
100%.
This is not it. Like, most things are not an emergency, and yet we go into emergency mode, which doesn't help those cortisol levels
No.
that you were
Mhm.
saying that you're trying to lower,
Yeah.
right? So it's really a few things that I see for you is like uncover those expectations, those unspoken expectations that you're holding yourself to,
Yeah.
and sit down and see which ones are societal, which ones are from some other specific person or persons, and which ones are actually yours of yourself. So those are the three primary sources of expectations.
Yeah.
And you can manage all of them, meaning you can eliminate them or decide to keep trying to achieve them. And I think the catch that happens with people with expectations is they think I'm letting myself off the hook, right? Like I have to make myself achieve these things. And again, that's just an expectation.
Mm.
Yeah. I feel like that's like I um have ADHD, and I was talking to a therapist a while ago about like, oh, I feel like I'm like really easy to like go with the flow and go back and forth with things, but then I realized that I'm more black and white than gray. So like I'm very much like I'm all in or I'm all out in a situation, and so I feel like, oh well, I either have to give it 100% or nothing at all, and I didn't realize I was that way, but now I'm like, oh, I think I'm a little bit more like there's not very many like there's a lot of gray areas, and I realize that now that I thought I was in a lot of gray areas and open-minded that way, but I realized like, no, I'm actually like, well, I have to give it 100% or nothing at all. And yeah.
Well, but it is one of the superpowers of ADHD is being able to have deep focus. So how do we just shift that and be able to use it to your benefit between 9 and 3? Right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you can still create those parameters and use what some might denote as a challenge as a superpower. And I happen to have a touch of that. And it really is a superpower because you have all these other creative things. And when I go into something, I am in. And some people don't understand it. I'm like, don't talk to me today. I'm working on a program, right? I'm working on a slide deck or whatever it is. So paying attention to that. So first of all, the expectations, what are they really? Where do they come from? Which ones do you want to hold on to? Which ones do you want to let go of? Find yourself a transition ritual. And it might take a little bit of time, but remember, once you do that ritual, you cannot work. Otherwise, your brain won't see it as a transition ritual.
Yeah. That makes sense for
And
sure. I
then
feel, yeah.
and then that self-talk, paying attention to how many times you say you when you're talking to yourself versus I when you're talking to yourself.
Yeah, I'm writing that down because that's an interesting one because I do feel like a lot of it is like negative self-talk, but I'm like, I have to be more conscious of, is it you or I? I think it's to like I'm putting the pressures on myself or like to succeed for our family, my own family, my sister's families, my parents, and then not only that, but like all of our team members. Like I feel like that is all on our shoulders in a sense, or mine.
I was just
So
noticing that too. Like, how come it's just you and not the three of you together? Like, in terms of the roles within the company, are you taking on more than your role?
I think as business owners, we tend to take on more, like wear more hats than needed. But we have worked really hard at getting like a really great team of women in place. So like I'm not working 16 hours. Like I used to work 16-hour days, and like I would be like absolutely mentally drained by the end of the day. But I feel like we are getting more protective over our free time or
Good.
that kind of thing. So like I do feel like we're all putting towards it, but I just feel like that overall pressure on myself for sure. But I'm sure my sisters probably feel the same way. But
Have you spoken to them about it?
uh, I feel like I don't know how, very openly, but I feel like I don't know. I guess I don't know that for sure, 100%.
It might be a great conversation to have.
For sure. We do like, and we tried really hard. We've gotten away from it because I think having kids, you go back into like almost survival mode, right? Where like you're just trying to survive the day, survive work, everything. And so I feel like I'm getting out of that a little bit now because mine are 5 and 8 years old. They're still little, but and my sisters are just having babies now, so like I know what's coming for them and excited for them. But it's also a lot. Like it's a lot when they were really little. I feel like it was a really difficult time in business for myself
Yeah.
just to survive. And now I'm like through that because I have my, my days more, they're in school. So it's not like I feel the guilt of being like, oh, they shouldn't be at daycare or with a nanny or my mom,
Right.
like whoever, my mom or whoever, where now I feel like they're at school. So I don't have that guilt as badly because they got to be there.
Yeah. Are you the oldest?
I am. Yeah.
So this
What could
is
you tell?
not unusual in
Not at
the
all. No.
psychological realm for the firstborn daughter to take on more than is really hers to take on. And so this conversation with your sisters as they're moving into motherhood, I think this is a really important time to have some of these conversations with them to save them from the torture you've been putting yourself through.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
If
sure.
you can't do it for you, can you do it for them?
Yeah, and I think I try to help. I think I try to help them, but I probably should be more vocal in helping them realize that like they can't do it all and that kind of thing, right? Because I feel like we are pretty good about trying to with like our free time, and we're protective of that as a family, even though business will always leak in at like when we're at family dinner, it comes in, but we're just so passionate about it that it's hard sometimes like to not talk. But you're right, like the things that are like if it's not like burning fire and we have to deal with it, I think they can wait till tomorrow, which we're getting there, but it's a
The
process.
conversation I'm inviting you to have is less about the particulars in the business and more about each of your experiences in the business.
Yeah,
Like,
for
and
sure.
could you even take an afternoon spa day or something together to have a just an honest conversation? Like, where are you? How does this work for you? What would work better? You have pointers of coming up ahead of them, right? What they're going to be stepping into, especially family, and then you being the firstborn. Like, there's a lot of energy in there, I'm sure, of the three of you. Nobody wants to let the other one down,
For sure.
right? So that sometimes inadvertently means that we don't speak fully what's going on for us.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So outside of the business space, just to have an open dialogue, right? And then no judgment, like set some ground rules of you can share absolutely anything right here. Each of us is going to do our best not to be offended by anything that someone else says, but humans, and see what really there is to be addressed, because especially if in the places we find out there's overlap in the experiences, there's a big opportunity to co-create something together that resolves that. And so
Yeah.
then it's not just separate, like Robyn's making these boundaries over here, right?
Yeah.
But doing it all together. And then I was just looking at my notes. So Angie and Allison that we spoke to with Blue Dahlia, there's some really great things in
Mhm.
there. I would really encourage you to listen to that episode. I don't necessarily want to repeat all those things, right,
Yeah,
for our
no.
entertainment effect, but
Yeah.
really good stuff in there. Really good stuff in there. And then presence practices. I mentioned presence practices earlier, and presence practices are going to help you be wherever you are in the moment, doing what you're doing and not doing this thing and thinking about that thing. What a bunch of my clients lately have been asking me, how do you get it all done? And I surprised them yesterday and I said, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, let me be just really blunt. I don't. I have gotten okay with things being incomplete when
Mhm.
it's appropriate for them to be incomplete, right?
Yeah, I
And
think
I don't do them all at the same time either, which means when I'm doing one thing, I'm not thinking about doing the other thing. And that applies to the business and motherhood scenario as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think focus time, like again, trying to like realize like focus time and free time and trying to be protective of those, I think is really important. But I also think motherhood has given me like my bar was up here for like business wise. And like I literally did not have the capacity to like some of the, like you said, like nothing, some days like stuff. I mean, when you get called, oh, this so and so is puking or sick, come pick them up. Like your days get thrown off. So I think I have lowered my expectations in a sense, but I also, they're like internally still there and like sitting like that pressure's on my shoulders. But like, I think I try to be like, oh, like gentler on myself and be like, what are you gonna, like, what's she gonna do? And I think motherhood's taken that down a notch a little bit because I literally cannot physically, like, I don't have the capacity for half of this at times, right?
Yeah. Motherhood will resolve the perfectionism and superwoman syndromes
100%.
very quickly, or you're tortured by the whole
Yeah.
thing. So I'm glad to hear that you've listened up on yourself in that way. And then I would also invite you to listen to the session with Michelle, the retail therapy session with Michelle, because there I did go into presence practices as well. I think that would be another great resource in here, keeping this conversation fresh and new in the perspective with you. But those are a couple other pieces that I feel like every single retailer or business owner will benefit from those things. Yeah. And specifically,
Rhonda,
you'd have them.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, it's totally different issues, but it does sometimes come back to similar structures and these tools that we need as small business owners or as moms or as humans. Like, we just need tools to support us through this life. And when we are experiencing different things in life, it's so funny. I just saw my dear friend Heather yesterday, and things have been so busy. I feel like I've never been busier right now. And I took a break from work and I was swapping the laundry, and I was like, I can't imagine if I had a kid right now who's like, I'm hungry, or play with me, or like, and then right as I was thinking that, my hand slipped and I punched myself in the face. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I have so much respect for moms. Number one, like, so much respect. And I just really wonder, can the mom guilt go away? Like, I don't know if we can answer this, but like, can it really go away? Because I hear it all the time from my friends who have kids. And it's such a hot topic. Like, Rhonda, do you think that can go away?
I am hesitant to say that it can go away, and I'm also hesitant to say that it can't. I think there's moments, right? And truly, the more present we are, because the more present we are with whatever it is that we're doing, then we're not there. I mean, I think the guilt happens because we're here and we're thinking about there in both directions, right?
Yep.
And so the guilt is showing us a disconnect or a misalignment in our own thinking, really, most of the time, because guilt is honestly one of the most wasted emotions there is, if not the most wasted emotion. And here's why. Because the purpose of guilt is I did something bad and wrong, and I need to correct my behavior. And mom guilt is not that you're doing something bad or wrong, right? So it's really displaced what it is, what we've named what having conflicting priorities feels like. It's not true guilt. It's that I have conflicting priorities. So then for each of us, we have to say, what are my priorities? So for example, I was still employed when my son was becoming a teenager, and golly, my kids were both so good and not trouble in the grand scheme. But I remember just saying to my boss, because I had to be out at job sites and things, and I said, you have to schedule, if I need to be on my deliveries, you have to schedule them all before this time, because I am going to be home when they're home. I am going to be home at 3:00. I did still work, but my stand was I'm going to be at home. And that's one of the ways I managed my conflicting, quote unquote, priorities. And that won't work for everybody, but we have to find ways to do that. But the priorities need to be truly ours. And then with my dad, I actually didn't take on any new clients. We got his diagnosis like the third week of January. I didn't take on any new clients from like the first or second week of February all the way to September of that year. I just was like, oh, okay, here's what we're doing. And there were some interesting times in that, right? Like, did I want to be dealing with all those things? No, but it was still my priority.
Yeah.
Right. And so what is the purpose of being a business owner if we can't make the things that are most important to us most important to us?
That was so helpful, actually. And I was debating of asking that question. I'm glad I did, because it really is a matter of being present and understanding. I really like the idea of thinking of conflicting priorities versus the guilt, because guilt feels like, well, I just have to deal with this and this is just life, versus like I have conflicting priorities right now. Restructure, what is the priority right now? Okay, it is my kid. So that's where, and I love the transition ritual, because you can train your brain. It's a process again, but it's a tool that allows for that transition to know, okay, I am on with the kids right now. So I have my transition ritual. Now I'm present. And you can, that guilt, I feel like, can be minimized. Does it ever go away? I don't know. But like, wow, that was a really helpful answer for me to use in my own life, not as a mom, and just such a good conversation. Awesome. Robyn, anything else to add here, or Rhonda, before we wrap up?
Well, that was great. I appreciate that very much. And thank you guys for having us on, or me on behalf of Cloud Nine. We're like, we're an entity. I feel like we're always like, it's the sisters, but yeah, thank you for having myself on. And wow, that was great.
I'd love to hear back on what transition ritual you put into place and how the open dialogue with your sisters goes. I want to really encourage you to do those things, put those in place.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm going to get writing and probably re-listen to this after to be able to make sure I didn't miss things. Because I was like, I want to write, but then I don't want to miss out. So thank you.
Yes. Yeah, you have access, and listen to those other 2 episodes. And that's one thing too I took a note on with the conversation with your sisters. I think that family business owners might hold things back because it is family, or I don't want to burden them. And so there is that holding in, and you talked to some of that too, Rhonda. And I just feel like, man, just having that open communication and co-creating, like going into it of, I want to co-create a plan versus like tell you how I feel or anything like that. It just feels so much more collaborative and helpful. And I'm sure there are just things that you want to say that needs to be said that the other person's like, I want to hear it. Oh my gosh, I had no idea, or I can support that. But I just think as family members, that can sometimes, we just won't go there. So I loved that piece of advice too. Anybody listening that works with family.
I think family, yeah, like I think I'm very fortunate because again, like some people have one person wearing all these hats that we have now been able to split up. And family is like, there's a different relationship that like, I feel like with friends, sometimes it's a different dynamic where family, like at the end of the day, we come back and we're all pretty good for like leaving the business at the door and being like, okay, like we're with family time now. Like we appreciate each other. And like, even if we could be like not, and we don't argue very much, but having that like disagreement. And then at dinner, it's just like, hey, like what's going on? Which we're able to like shut those or decipher those two. But we also, it makes it more difficult sometimes, but then it's also not just all on me, as opposed to some business owners, like they feel like they don't have that system around them. So we're very lucky for that.
Yeah, you've got and you all are just awesome humans. So that makes it even
you?
better. Such a great family. Robyn, before we sign off here, I always like to ask my retail therapy guests what piece of advice you have for our retailer listeners.
Well, that's a hard one. I would say just getting it comes down to what we've been talking about, but getting the right people in the right places in your business, in the right seats or whatever you want to call them. But like, I think that for us has been a huge part of like me not wearing 3 billion hats as opposed to the ones that are my strengths. So really hiring people that want to move forward, or like we're really growth oriented. So like we want people that fit our vision essentially and you can't do it all. So try and hire people that can do the things that you're unable to, and let them join the team or hire it out or whatever. But it'll save a lot of stress, I feel like.
That's so true. Excellent advice. Robyn, thank you so much for being here. Rhonda, thank you for being here. This was such a good conversation.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Everyone, remember that I'm rooting for your success. Have a great week ahead. Bye. Okay, I have exciting news to share. The Rooted in Retail Mastermind is launching this January. It's your chance to connect deeper with me, the retail pros from the show, and an incredible community of resilient retailers, both online and in person, with several meetups throughout the year. Get on the waitlist at rootedinretail.com/waitlist. And don't just listen to the show, be a part of the magic and grow your store with us. I hope to see you there.